That's no moon. It's a space station.
But that's because we all come shooting out in the desert because we're allowed to.
Right.
So being shot at is a lot different than hearing a gunshot, you know.
So explain to me this windmill real quick, because this thing seems to be very anomalous. It will just start spinning when there's no wind.
So yeah, and the other night it was spinning. I was out here with some friends and it was real loud, so we couldn't hear any Bigfoots around us. And we asked the windmill to stop and it stopped right away. It was pretty good. But there's always been like strange things associated with the windmill. People experiencing missing time, or other, you know, it's spinning on command. And I brought a guy named Benjamin Lonetree out here, who he'd been measuring all the vortexes in Sedona for like 20 plus years. And I brought him out here to see if we could measure out here. And when we measured at the base of the windmill, his data showed that that is stronger than any vortex in all of Sedona.
Really?
And the reason we think that is the pipe runs down to the water table because it used to pump water up.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's not connected to the windmill anymore, we think that pipe is basically acting as a wire. And so it's going down into the earth, and that energy vortex is just running up that pipe like a big wire.
Right.
Which they might be able to use that to spin or control the windmill.
Look at that. No, it's doing a little dance for us right now.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Thanks for showing your shiny face to us. Yeah, so we always try and start and stop it on command, and it does do it. I can honestly say it does happen. And it just started breaking.
Yeah. Got a little wind this time, but still, perfect timing.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just kind of playing into the electromagnetic field of what's happening there already.
And, you know, energy coming out of the ground up that pole doesn't take any value from us getting it to start or stop. I think that's just the energy the entities use to control it.
Correct.
Right. Because they're controlling it and they got to be doing it somehow. Front yard got really overgrown.
Hey guys, welcome back. So we are out here at Bradshaw Ranch, actually, in Sedona, Arizona. And I'm here with Dr. Juergen Hess, as seen in the Who Do Tall series on YouTube.
Yep.
And he is an investigator out here at Bradshaw Ranch. I met him recently. Some of you guys may have seen the UFO fleet video that Lily Nova posted. Actually, we were both out here and we just did it in person, and it was pretty amazing. Actually, it was one of the most incredible things I've seen. Apparently, that happens often out here, which we'll let him tell us about. But welcome to the show. You've spent how many years out here investigating?
So yeah, thank you for having me as well. It's been about 6 or 7 years I've been coming out here to the ranch, and that. You know, I wouldn't have found the ranch if it wasn't for the Bigfoots. The reason I started coming out here to begin with were the UFOs. I had been really great friends with a guy named John Lear for about the last 15 years of his life. He was just one of my favorite people and became a mentor. I mean, you know, I'd go sit and hang out with John and learn the things about life that I felt like I needed to learn. You know, I have great parents, but I needed this weird cosmic father to kind of give me some guidance. And so all those years sitting at John's house with him showing me photographs and videos of the moon. The moon was our first favorite obsession for both of us. But, you know, he was right there with Bob Lazar when Bob went to work at Area 51. In fact, it was a conversation with John Lear and Gene Huff that led Bob to even go try to work at Area 51. So I was hearing a lot of Bob Lazar stuff from John, and John even has had like a half-scale model of the UFO engine that Bob Lazar worked on. Bob Lazar made him this cool half-scale model. So I was really like neck deep in all this UFO stuff. And, you know, after spending so much time with John, I knew this stuff was real. John had no reason to lie to me. He taught me the way he was, and he has said some really wild stuff, but he's only said it because that's what he learned. John didn't make stuff up. He just
Right.
learned and shared what he learned, and he taught me to do the same thing. And so I'd finally got to this point where I just wanted to see the UFOs. He convinced me they're real just with us talking. And when I wanted to see them, I tried to do it methodically. And over all the UFO encounters over the years, John would always tell me that the incident in 1980 in the Rendlesham Forest, he said he was confident that incident happened because he knew guys on the base, he had spoken to them, and everything he could gather, he was certain that that incident was genuine. So I started with that because from that incident comes the coordinate list. So one of the military people, a craft landed in the forest near a U.S. base in England 3 nights in a row. And one night, one of the officers touched the craft. And when he did that, he had all these zeros and ones kind of burned into his mind. And he eventually got a little spiral notebook and just wrote them all down as he saw them. I think it was like 12 or 13 pages. And he put it in his desk drawer and really just kind of forgot about it. Well, in 2010, he happened to show somebody that notebook, and the person he showed it to instantly recognized it as binary code. And he said, that's what this is. We need to translate it and see what happens. And so they translated the binary code and we're left with a message and a coordinate list. The message is a little bit broken and a little confusing, but the coordinate list had places like the pyramids in Giza, the Nazca lines in Peru, I think even the Yonaguni Monument in Japan. And it lists these very special places and then listed Sedona, Arizona. And when I first looked at the list, the other places seemed to have a known structure that was kind of bizarre, right? But Sedona didn't. And not only was it the closest place on the list, which was helpful to me, but I thought, okay, if I want to see these craft, I'm going to go somewhere on this list. And Sedona seemed the obvious choice due to not being ancient monuments here like the other ones, and it being the closest. So I figured worst case scenario, I'd just have a really fun camp trip out here if we didn't see any UFOs. And it was the opposite of that. We saw so many. I went on a night vision tour that first trip where you go out with Gen 3 military night vision. And we saw about 80 craft within a 2-hour period. Some of even changing colors. Like there was one point where I didn't have the night vision on. I could see it go from orangish light turn into a white light and take off. And I was blown away by the things I was seeing in the sky. Because I've camped my whole life. I've camped in 48 states. And I haven't camped in Alaska and I haven't camped in Hawaii. But I would sit out every night looking at the sky and I'd never seen anything anywhere compared to what we see here.
Right.
And so that was really addicting to itself. And it did take me a couple of years to come back. When I made my second trip here, I thought, yeah, there's no way I'm going to see as much as I saw that first trip. Yeah, and that was so wrong. At every trip I'd make, I started coming every year. Each trip I would make would be a little more intense and see and experience a little bit more. It was the first trip I made alone. So I used to have friends come with me, and then it got difficult because I'm telling them, hey, we're going to set up our tents, watch UFOs fly over our head, and then go to bed. And they're like, no, I'm not, like that sounded terrifying to them.
Right.
So it was the first year I came alone. And at the time, I still had like crippling anxiety for as long as I can remember. And I didn't think I'd be able to go camping alone. I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I don't know if I can handle one night of that. And I convinced myself that just coming out here and trying to camp for a week alone, it was worth that fight with my anxiety to try to have the encounters. And it's actually due to those encounters I was able to get rid of a lot of my anxiety. So it actually did work. But that first trip alone, I wanted to go on a hike and look for petroglyphs off trail, and so I got a tip from a park ranger of a cool creek bed. And I started hiking through there one morning, and I started seeing the strangest carvings of what looked like aliens and, ant people and carvings of UFOs. And then as I was about 100 or 150 yards deep, I found a carving of a Bigfoot. And man, I was really taken back. Like across the creek bed from the Bigfoot is a carving of a saber-toothed cat. So these could be up to 10,000 years old. And as I searched that creek bed more often, I found more Bigfoot carvings and carvings of its footprints in the rocks. And that very first day when I saw that carving, it was really hot out, and I kind of realized I was in a bad spot. I didn't have any water left. It was in my car. It was like 120 degrees because it's like an oven down in this creek bed where I was. And so I realized I needed to get back to my car because I was getting heat soaked. And that's the moment I had my first encounter when I turned to leave the place where there's a carving of Bigfoot. I was turning into the wind to go back to my car, and I smelled it. And in hindsight, I know what that smell is now. At the time, I mean, it smelled like a cross between dead bodies and burnt tires and burning hair. You know, it makes your eyes well up and your throat close up.
Right.
And I got kind of panicked because I was out in the middle of nowhere alone, didn't have anything to keep me safe from anything. And so I calmed myself down a bit. I said, all right, retrace my steps and see if I don't see, maybe there is a dead animal nearby or anything. So I retraced my steps all the way to my starting point and didn't see anything. And it was also the first time I ever had any kind of intuitive hit. As I was standing there, I was going to go to my car and something suggested to me, just go a little further. And I thought that was weird because I'm not a psychic or have any abilities like that. So it's kind of bizarre when you hear a voice that's not your own in your head, you know, and it was just saying, just go like 30, 40 more feet. And I did that. And I found the most perfect Bigfoot footprint I probably will ever find. I mean, my size 12 hiking shoe could fit inside of it. The toes were perfect and had kicked up dirt just like it would do. There was a mid-tarsal break.
Yeah, if it was gripping, yeah.
And so after I got videos and pictures of it and got back to my car and looking in the pictures and videos afterward, we also realized its knuckle print was there. It was left knuckles, right foot. And at the time, I didn't know much about Bigfoot other than, you know, TV shows and stuff I'd seen. And I was just really thrown off because I was like, you're telling me there's some undocumented monkey in the 100, like there's no way. There can't be that. Having encounters with them now, I know that they're not terrestrial. They're more than that. The weather doesn't seem to bother them.
Yeah, and almost multi-dimensional.
Right. Yeah, I just consider them ET as like any other thing at this point. And it was after that initial contact that they really kind of started harassing me a bit. I would always camp in the same place along a tree line on Oak Creek, so I'm right next to the water. And after that first contact, every trip I would make, they would come through my campsite at least one of the nights. Either walking through the creek where you can hear them like they're two big legs plowing through, come outside the tent and grunt. And that was weird because I had a cameraman with me and another friend in the tent. And I heard the grunting and they were starting to panic because it was in the middle of the night. And I tried to tell them it was a javelina to calm them down, but it didn't sound like a javelina and it was coming from 8 feet off the ground. So unless a javelina is up in a tree, it's
right.
And the cameraman was getting really afraid. And so I told him, if you want it to go away, just turn your camera on. And he said, I'm not going out there with my camera. I said, no, you don't have to. Turn it on. They'll know it's on and he'll stop. And so he got his camera out, turned it on, and it completely stopped.
Right. So let's rewind a little bit. That's amazing. But for those who don't know, Bradshaw Ranch is kind of like another version of Skinwalker Ranch. Just what kind of anything.
It's similar. I almost feel like they're opposite points. Here you are safe. Nothing's ever been hurt. There's no animal mutilations here. The only thing that seemed a little bit off was years ago when some of the horses had their manes pulled out a bit, but that was one thing I questioned when I first found this place. I had asked Tom Dongo, who used to research here with Linda Bradshaw. I said, am I okay being out there alone at night? Because 90% of the time I'm here, it's night and I'm alone. Mm-hmm. And he said, absolutely you are. There's nothing out there that's been hurt or damaged as far as anyone else has noticed, which At Skinwalker, some of those things can happen.
Right. I've
Yeah.
seen, we've heard the stories, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even when we were out here the other night, we were having like pebbles and stuff thrown at us.
Yeah.
Which was kind of, well, actually, I've experienced that once before, but it's been years, and it's kind of really interesting. You know, it was just a lot of activity.
Yeah, the rock throwing has only started in the last month or so. I had never had rocks thrown at us before, but I signed up to be a member of Longhorn Paranormal, this investigative team, so that I can kind of bring them and introduce them to more than ghosts, you know. And we were out here, and that was we set up for 48 hours to film. I mean, we had every satellite tracker on computers and internet and everything. And I sent them up the hillside, and luckily we got on camera rocks being thrown, and they were throwing them up over trees and landing in front of people. And that was the first occurrence of it. And so I was wondering if maybe there's a new Bigfoot that showed up recently that likes throwing rocks. But
so you actually caught a rock flying into the site on camera.
Yeah. They're still editing the footage together, but I think that's going to be really interesting for people to see.
And just take a break and tell people where they can find your footage and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look up Hoodoo Tall on YouTube, it's all free. HOODOOTALL. The first documentary we did was before I moved here, kind of encouraging people, if you're into this stuff, look at what happens out here. And it's more about trying to get people more proactive in doing some field work. You know, I used to be one of the people that would just sit at home and take in all I could, but John Lear was the one telling me, like, you can't do that. You need to go out to be in the places these things are, and then you're really going to have good stuff happen. And he's absolutely right. And that's kind of what Sedona and the ranch have been is, you know, I used to do ghost hunting tours, and I'd tell people, you don't need to be afraid when you go home because I'm taking you to where the ghosts are. Like if you live in Ohio, you're never going to see a whale. But if you go on a whale watching tour, you're probably going to see one, right? Because you went to where the whales are. And I had seen a documentary called My Octopus Teacher with this guy who decided to befriend an octopus by becoming comfortable where the octopus lives and becoming part of that and just seeing how. And that's the approach I started coming out here with, you know, get comfortable with the place and everything that's around so that I kind of become part of it and then see what I can encounter. And moving here had a big plan that so I could be here more often.
Right. You know, that's so interesting too. And the wind just picked up a little bit here.
Yeah.
But the other night when we were here, we heard this door creak.
It does that.
And there was no wind, though.
Right.
And that I found really interesting too. And we've heard a couple bangs in here. You know, it could just be normal movement and settling and stuff. But, you know, what kind of activity has come from this house in particular?
The weirdest one we had in the house, and I've used spirit boxes out here a lot and usually don't get anything. But one night we tried the Estes method, which is the person who has a spirit box is blindfolded and they have noise canceling headphones plugged into the box. So they can't see us or hear our questions, but they can repeat what comes through the spirit box. And we did that, and we actually had like this 10-minute conversation with something.
Wow.
And the woman on the spirit box was doing a great job because she was actually carrying through kind of like the emotions she heard, or she was giggling or anything like that. And she had no clue what we were asking. But this thing started talking to us, and it was, as I was trying to get to the bottom of what it was, some of the interesting things from it were that it referred to itself as a higher level, somewhat of like a guardian. And I asked him if it was alone, and he kind of laughed, and he said, no. And I said, how many others? And it said 7. So I said, there's 8 of you in total. And the reply was, giggle, yes, 8. So the conversation was direct, very direct and corresponding with what we were saying. You know, it wasn't vague. And then I finally asked it if we ever get the chance to see them, because I said it could see us. And he giggled again and said, yes, in disguise. And I said, that's interesting. What do you disguise yourself as? And it said, birds.
I have to share a story after this.
Yeah, and there's actually 2 birds that live in the kitchen in here at night, up in the old fluorescent light up there, and there's an owl that comes out at night. And I did ask it if the other 7 are also guardians, and it said no, accomplices. So it seems to be that, I mean, when you come out here, you can feel that there's things watching you
Yeah.
that you can't see, right?
I agree.
And there's so much more than Bigfoot out here. And I think there's a lot of these entities, maybe without a container, without a body, that are coming and going from the place. Inside the house, I would say it usually happens when I'm outside the house and I'll hear stuff inside and go in and look and don't see anything. The one experiment I do want to try is to replicate what happened to Linda in the house, which was she would take a nap on the couch and something would pick up her camera and take pictures around the house while she slept.
Wow.
And so I do want to run that trial in here and sleep on that old couch in the back room there. And maybe just put like a disposable camera or something out and see if that happens. But I don't get the sensation that it's a haunted house. I think it's a house that was built on a part of land that has a lot going on geologically and other stuff. You know?
Right. The activity was already here.
Right.
And
right.
I see. So I want to rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
In that Guardian thing. This is I recently went on a road trip up to Banff, Canada. I don't know if you've been there at the absolutely stunning mountains. Looks like Lord of the
Haven't been there, but know of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the mountains are incredible. But everything that you look at looks like a postcard. And we did some grid work up there and stuff. And once I got back home, I had this vision as I was falling asleep of this meeting occurring on top of the mountains with these guardians.
Yeah.
Almost looked like archangels, like they were kind of like light beings.
Right.
Like they weren't really physical beings, but they were at the highest point of the mountain. And I don't really know what the meeting was about, but I had a bird's eye view of the meeting. And there were obviously, it seemed like a rare event. It just felt like I was just being allowed to see that for whatever reason. And once the meeting concluded, they all took the form of a different kind of bird and then just took off and started soaring through the mountain. And this was a vision I got before I even fell asleep. Like I was like there and I just saw this whole thing play out and I was like, whoa. And I just like fundamentally knew, I'm like, some of these birds that we see are guardians. And the fact that you just had that you just explained that experience.
Yeah, I think the whole birds aren't real subreddit will probably love that exchange we had in there. Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's funny.
And the Guardian showed up in a photo I'll send you out here too. So I have a guy kind of like an eye in the sky. He has access to the Northern Arizona University cameras on the property.
Okay.
And so when I'm out here walking around doing stuff and something weird shows up on camera, he lets me know. And he sent me a picture maybe a month and a half ago, where I'm over there by the windmill and there's a being made of just pure white standing on top of the tree watching me. And I couldn't see it.
Oh, you showed me that.
Yeah, I'll send you that.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that I really like. It's fun when it's really unknown and something surprises you, right? The UFOs feel magical to me every time I get to see them. The novelty factor never wears off. But this property, though, throws things in the mix when you're least expecting it, Right. I'm coming out to look for Bigfoot footprints and find fresh dinosaur tracks. Like what?
There's another one.
Yeah, that, and I wouldn't have known what they were unless I'd read Tom and Linda's book, Merging Dimensions, because Linda in there talks about 2 times when they lived here that they saw dinosaurs walking around. She saw long-necked dinosaurs go through her front yard, and a family visiting the ranch saw a 2-legged dinosaur, like a T-Rex or raptor, going into the trees. And I found footprints of both of those so far. I'm out here right next to the Bradshaw Ranch, actually, next to this corral I found. This wasn't made this morning because it's been rained on. Yeah, that's a big, weird-looking track. There's another one there. There's only those 2. That's like the size of a grizzly bear. I mean, my hand fits in just the base of it. And my footprint next to it for scale. Wow. So there's so much going on here. And And I think that a lot of it gets overlooked when people get too specialized in one area, you know.
Right.
If they're only looking for UFOs, they're going to miss a lot of stuff on the ground. And
Right.
so try to keep open to a lot of it.
Right. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your relationship with John Lear and some of the stuff that he shared with you.
Yeah.
You said it started with the moon mysteries, and that's something that's really fascinating to me. So maybe you can just explain what that was like.
Sure. And it, you know, it happened because I felt like I was going crazy. I mean, when I turned 24, weird things started happening to me that I couldn't really describe. Things in my room at night that I couldn't see, moving stuff around, or having this paralyzed feeling where I can't move with something. So, and I always used to stay up and listen to Coast back when Art Bell was doing it. I still listen sometimes now, and John Lear would come on the radio show every now and then, and he was just my favorite person to listen to. And it wasn't until I knew him that I found out that he's the reason we have Coast to Coast. Art Bell was just a regular radio show host and interviewed John and was so taken back by the stuff John said. He reformatted his show into Coast to Coast and started a new radio format. So I was already friends with him when I found out I liked him even more than I knew, you know?
Right.
And it came to this point where I just had so many questions and didn't know anyone else that could possibly answer them. And John on his interviews would say, you know, he lives in Las Vegas and he's listed in the white pages. He's not hiding from anyone and all that. And so it was a weekend. A friend of mine were in Vegas. We were getting ready to head home on Sunday. And I said to him, hey, how about I get some really like expensive cigars and we leave them at John's mailbox? Because John always said he loves smoking cigars. I was like, to me, just as like a thank you, you know, for all the stuff he's done. And so we went to the cigar store and I spent like $150 on like 3 cigars. And we drive out to the house, which he used to live on Hollywood Boulevard, which was funny. And so we get to the house and there's a giant gate around the house and there's no mailbox. And I'm like, okay, this sucks. I'm not just going to like throw these cigars over the fence, you know? So we were figuring out what to do. I was like, all right, I'm just going to call the number on the listed. And I called it and John answered the phone. And to me, it was like this surreal moment because I'm suddenly hearing the voice I dedicated so much time listening to now on the phone talking to me. You know, I was like, oh, yeah. And previous to that, he and I had only communicated in a forum post that he made where people could ask him questions. And I'd asked a couple there and he'd answered. And so when he answered the phone, I was like, you know, hey, John, my name's Juergen. Like, you don't know me, but I brought you some cigars. We've talked on GLP before, the name of the phone. And he's like, where did we talk? And I said, GLP. He said, oh, you better come inside. And then like the big gates opened up and drove up into his big driveway there. And we spent like maybe 5 or 6 hours that first day with John. And I couldn't believe it. And he, you know, I don't know why, but he just took to me very well. And, you know, if I wasn't coming out to visit him and sit and talk to him, we were calling each other on the phone. And I think the best compliments I've ever gotten in life came from John.
That's amazing.
One of them was he referred to me as an old timer like him, which I was like, yes. And another time he was really sick. He asked me if I could visit him because he said he felt the best when I was there hanging out with him. And that really got to me.
That's amazing. You know, listening to those old John Lear interviews was some of my favorite things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody, I told you I forgot to bring it with me, but someone gifted me the old 1986 John Lear report,
right?
Which I need to show you still. But it's fascinating to me that, well, that he was covering that stuff in the 80s for one.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, I think, you know, I've referenced his research in a number of my research projects and webinars, documentaries and stuff. So he's just, you know, he played a crucial role for me as well.
Yeah, he was.
I've never known anyone to know him like you have, so that's what.
Right. Yeah, and one of the coolest things he had at his house. So when I would go hang out with him, you know, he had this big, huge office, and all the walls covered in framed photos, and he had this bank of televisions mounted to his desk. And there's one photo that was off to the far side that was blown up really big, like 2 feet by 4 feet. And it took me a few times being at the house before I ever asked him about it. And when you look at it from where I was sitting, it just looked like the close-up of a moon crater, you know. And finally I asked him, I said, John, why do you have that one picture blown up so big? And he got excited. He's, I haven't shown you that. I said, well, I mean, I can see it from here. And that's when he told me that 1970 is when NASA started airbrushing all their photos. Before we had Photoshop, they used airbrush.
Right.
And he said him and I think George Knapp and maybe Bob Lazar, they used to try to get the original slides from pre-1970. And that's what this was reproduced from. He had the slide and he had it blown up really big and made this poster. And he told me, he said, get up and go stand in front of it. I was like, okay. So I get up and I'm standing like 4 or 5 feet from the poster and it still just kind of looked like a moon crater. And he said, now walk up to it. And as I walked up to it and you get close to it, inside the crater is an entire city. I mean, it is plainly obvious. The grid pattern of the streets, there was a main street in the middle, all these buildings and everything, all just sitting inside this crater. And it's still one of the most, like, I wish I knew what happened to that poster. Someone has it now, you know, but that was one of the wildest things he ever showed me. You know, the moon itself doesn't make any sense to begin with.
Right.
And most of those things we call craters on the moon are not craters by definition. A crater is a bowl-shaped object.
They're not bullshit.
No, they're round. They're the same shape as, it's almost like a ring of mountains. You know, it's like whatever impacted is hitting a hard surface that it can't get past, and all the craters are the same depth craters.
Right.
And when you dig on the moon, the material gets younger. Like on Earth, right? We dig down, the material is older. It's the opposite on the moon.
Yeah.
The more you dig down, the younger it gets.
That's the same with periods.
Yeah, there's so many strange things. Nobody can figure out how the moon got there. We only have theories, right? Which theories aren't proven.
Right.
And so that's why that was one of our first topics. Well, a continued topic for John and I, always looking for a new cool picture of something on the moon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff when you get good photos. There, you know, big towers and antennas. And
I wish I had my phone. I just ordered an old book from it was written in the 60s, and it's like Secrets of the Moon, and it's photographs of these moon bases that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I stumbled across it and I ordered it, and it's supposed to be arriving in the mail today.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I want to check that out with you.
Yeah, and it's like it's not really in print anymore, so somebody has taken it and reprinted it.
Oh, good.
I think I can't wait to dive into that. But the moon is something that we've covered, and we've interviewed a number of people on it. And just some of the classic interviews, Carl Wolf, if you know who he is, he talked about, you know, working for the NSA, and actually he was brought in to fix one of the computers, and one of the guys in the room told him, like, hey, look at this, we found a base. And he kind of blew the whistle to him in confidence. And obviously he came out and shared that testimony. We have David Adair talking about it, William Tompkins, a number of guys who it seems to be that there is a presence on the moon. There has been far before.
It certainly looks that way. You know, this one guy had come to John who claimed he had been there. And John got a Pantone color book and asked the guy to find the color of the daytime sky on the moon. And he had picked out this saffron yellow color. And he said, that's the color of the daytime sky on the moon. But I was just...
Now, did he claim to be there in like an Apollo mission, or this is a...
No, he was there through a secret program, yeah. You know, and I'm to the point now where I think we have been to the moon, but I think it's all been on borrowed craft. I don't think... Well, the Apollo footage... The actual video footage, I don't trust.
Yeah, that was fake.
I mean, it's just, there's too many discrepancies in there for that to have been real. And I don't think we went to the moon with like the Wile E. Coyote, like putting guys in a bucket, strapping it to a rocket.
You know,
and you know, but I think we've been there other ways. Yeah,
I agree. I don't either. I think that, well, a friend of ours, Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress.
Yeah, sure.
So she's a remote viewer, and I was asking her, you know, in one of the interviews, what's the one thing that you've remote viewed that you know kind of took you back? And she won't even talk about it on camera, but she remote viewed how they got to the moon, what that looked like. And it was the first time she's ever been approached and told not to stop looking into that, basically.
Oh yeah.
She says the only thing she's ever remote viewed where she's actually been
That's interesting.
threatened.
Right.
But basically, I'm sure at this point, this was years ago,
Yeah,
but she wouldn't mind me sharing, but what she saw was they were not using a rocket to get there.
Right.
And it was some sort of highly advanced craft, if not even like some sort of a jump room portal type of situation, that it just seems like science fiction to us. But
yeah, and that the I just still use the word magic a lot because magic is science. We just haven't figured out yet. But the way Bob Lazar described the engine on the UFOs has kind of, and I even mention it in my dissertation because it's all about this kind of stuff, but these craft can manipulate gravity. And so when they travel, they're pinpointing where they want to go, pulling it back to them and then going with it. And well, so when it comes to, portals and stargates and stuff like that, I don't think the craft they don't have to wait for a portal. I think every craft is a portal or stargate due to the engine with a room built around it, So like the whole thing about a jump room and stuff, it could easily be possible just if we had the same type of engine that they're using on a craft, but we're not sending the whole ship. Yeah,
I agree. There's something going on there. I mean, we have a lot of people who've come forward talking about this stuff, but it's all but been admitted.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just amazing. I think that to think, what is actually going on and what we're capable of, which reminds me, I wanted to ask you about that author you were telling me about, Lou Baldwin.
Lou Baldwin. Yeah.
Lou Baldwin.
So the way he came up was, as I was talking to John and over all the years, he started telling me about a guy that we first called Sleeper. And he was posting on the forum above Top Secret before they started banning all the truth tellers. And Sleeper, John told me that he was seeing the post by this guy Sleeper, and that John said, this is the only guy I've ever seen who's right, who's telling. And so that was kind of how John got to know him a bit. Now, John ended up convincing him to write some books, and he did those under his name of Lou Baldwin. And when John passed away, Lou has kind of become the last living source that I have, at least, Lou's been nice enough to keep up communication with me. He does seem to know an awful lot, and I put a lot of it to the test to see if what he says is true. And that's what a lot of my field work is. It isn't, I know UFOs are real, I'm going to go catch them. It's no, I've been told all this stuff and I want to go out and see if it's genuine or not. And like one of the first times John brought up Lou to me, I was sitting with him at his house and John leaned over his desk and he said, "Hey, I heard the sun is pregnant." And I was like, what are you talking about, old man?
Right.
And he said, "Well, how do you think planets form?" And I said, "I don't know, but the whole concept of space dust collecting doesn't work for me, because if there's dust orbiting a star, it's under centrifugal force. It's going to spread out and dissipate. It's not going to ball up." And I didn't. And he said, "Well, yeah, they don't form that way." He said that suns eject planets. They're made as ejecta from stars. And he said the way it was described to him by Lou was that black holes go around the universe digesting matter, and they eject stars or the components that create stars. And he said from there, the stars eject planets and the gas giants eject moons. And he said that somebody told him the sun was pregnant. He didn't tell me Moon's name at that point. So John and I spent like the next 3 months watching this thing called the SOHO cam, SOHO.
Mm-hmm.
It's online. It looks at the sun 24 hours a day. And he and I from our homes would just constantly watch it, hoping to see something happen. And yeah, it was about 3 months when we saw the sun birth a new planet. It ejected this fireball the size of a planet. And instead of like a normal coronal ejection, it didn't dissipate. This ball of fire stayed there, cooled, exited, cool, and then started orbiting the sun. And so we're like, how did this guy know that? Well, now we have pictures, 15 years later, we have photos of black holes ejecting star matter now. So the stuff Lou was saying, all that is once again shown to be true. And Lou also said how to meet an ET if we want to. And I've tried it twice. Neither time did I do it absolutely correctly, just due to fear. Because what he said was, you got to go someplace remote and abandoned. And it has to be somewhere where you can't just like flick a light switch on. He said, you need to be the vulnerable one. And he said, you got to go to like the basement of an abandoned house or 10 miles out in the woods, somewhere where it's easy for them to do it. And he said, and go when it's pitch black. And he said, put your arms out by your side with your hands open and mentally let them know you're ready to meet them. And within 10 or 15 minutes, one's going to come up and hold your hand there in the dark. To me, that sounded like something you'd see in the trailer of a horror movie. Like you're in the dark and someone holds your hand.
Right.
So I tried it kind of like in a bit of a half-assed way originally up in a meadow north of town here. And they did show up as I tried to approach them, because I was in a meadow and they showed up in the tree line at the edge of the meadow and they invited me over. And as I started walking toward them, I made it only like 2 or 3 feet or 2 or 3 steps. And I was stopped and I was just like crying my eyes out. And it was because as I tried to walk toward where they were, each step you could feel them stronger. And they're so pure that in relation to them, I felt terrible. This was probably 5 years ago or so when I still had a lot to process. And as I approached them, the only thing that became obvious were every one of my flaws and insecurities, because that was the difference between me and them. And the second time I tried it was here in the Bradshaw house. And even though you're not supposed to, I was holding my cell phone camera up, videotaping. Honestly, because I was still pretty nervous at the time. And one showed up, and the footage is in Hoodoo Tall 2, episode 1. I at least captured the audio of this thing walking in a circle around me. And I didn't have my hand out because I'm still a little bit leery about it. Having one physically touch your hand and hold your hand is still a little intimidating. I got to get past that.
And I've actually experienced exactly that. And
oh yeah,
a friend of mine, she's a very credible channel as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
We've interviewed a lot of channelers, and we were up in Colorado, Fraser Valley. That's a hot spot out there as well.
Yeah.
And we were up in this isolated mountain, and she was communicating with this extraterrestrial who claimed to be like just basically living where we were in the moment, but in another dimension, another frequency.
Sure.
And she was communicating with them, and they asked us to hold our hands out. And I swear to you, like this thing came and held my hand.
Yeah.
And it was a massive hand.
Right.
It almost felt like somebody with an oven mitts or something,
Oh, wow.
And it was so real. I don't know how to describe it to somebody without sounding crazy.
Yeah, you really can't. It's really hard to do. And that's one thing I had to kind of get over was, the subject used to be something I loved talking about, and I'd always get ridiculed for it and told I'm crazy and stuff. So gathering actual evidence of it, getting videos and pictures of the UFOs, or the one night Bigfoot, let me take its picture out here. It helps me at least talk about it with some more confidence, because when people doubt it, I can at least show them pictures and video of it, and then you tell me what it is. I'd love to. If it's not that, then please enlighten me as to what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, this place, I asked you at the beginning, so you've been coming out here for how frequently, for how many years?
So now that I moved here about 3.5 years ago, and originally it started with one camp trip a year where I'd spend a week out here. That turned into 2 10-day camp trips a year. And since I moved here, I've been coming out here 2 to 3 times a week. Usually every like Friday, Saturday, and I try to get in one during the week too. And I'll come when it's light out to kind of recon the property, look for fresh footprints or fresh tree breaks, things that are noticeably different because I've spent so much time here now that I'm very familiar with even the hillsides around the property. So when something is different, it's easy to notice. And then I wait into the night because that just seems to be when the things actually manifest a lot more. You know, I've had one daytime sighting out here of Bigfoot, and in hindsight, they have a process they put people through, because when I read Linda's book, the big girl, the white Bigfoot she was interacting with, put her through the exact same procedure that they put me through up to the point of seeing it. And that went, first you know they're here because you can hear them doing stuff. Then you start offering them food and gifts. And at first, I didn't know what to feed them. I'll try like these fresh organic mushrooms or things I think they could forage for, and nothing touches them. They just sit out for weeks until they rot. And then a friend of mine, Monica, she suggested we use a red plate because Linda used a red plate and the familiarity there. So we started using like a plastic flimsy red plate, and that's when they started eating. The first time we left the plate out, and I went back to just go into that room. And when I walked by the window, I peeked in and saw something green and shiny on the plate. And at first I was like, is that a grape? So I went into where the table is, and it was actually a piece of aventurine stone. I don't think the Bigfoots went to a crystal shop and bought the stone. I think somebody else probably left it somewhere on the property as a gift, and that they probably picked it up and put it there. And as I was looking at the stone, I thought, oh, maybe this is a present. I was like, no, what was your first impression? It's a grape. Maybe they just want grapes. And so that was the next trick. I put like 3 pounds of grapes on the plate, and they're gone the next morning. And so grapes have been a good way to interact. And just last week, it was funny. A friend of mine, Olivia, was out here, and she wanted to bring the Bigfoot some food. And I feed them in a different spot now because my original location, once people saw it, has been constantly messed with, and, you know, people are damaging it. So I have a new spot I feed them. And I brought Olivia there, and along with grapes, she brought a bunch of fresh strawberries and fresh figs. She's like, well, I want to leave them more than grapes. I said, you can try. I mean, there's no hurt in trying, you know. We stacked it all up on the plate, and I'll send you the picture. I went back 2 days later. They only took the grapes. The strawberries are sitting there rotting. The figs are there. And that kind of at least shows you that it's something other than a random wild animal. You know, they would just take whatever. And granted, the place I feed them now is a table that's in a tree. Like, it's not on the ground. It's in a tree, kind of hard to get to. You can reach in and grab stuff. But the other stuff's still on the table and plate. It's not like something knocked it all off.
Yeah.
But they took all the grapes only. So for some reason out here, they like grapes.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. If you come, bring a grape offering.
Yeah, that's next time. Absolutely. So getting back to this Lou Baldwin guy really quickly before we start wrapping this up. You know, you were mentioning some stuff the other night that was kind of blowing my mind as far as things he covered in his book.
Yeah.
As far as like other planets in our solar system and potentially being colonized and stuff like that.
According to him, every body in our solar system is inhabited in some way. And I mean, at this point, I'll probably just say it, so not a lot of people know it about Lou, but John told me because Lou told John. And the reason Lou knows the stuff he knows is because he doesn't have the same type of amnesia the rest of us have. And that's because where all of us are here on some sort of soul contract we agreed to, Lou chose to come here at this point in time specifically to meet and help John Lear. He said, John is actually incredibly famous even off Earth and comes from a famous soul family. And he wanted to be here to kind of help John with some truthful information, regardless of how out there it sounded. And the more I got to read some of Lou's stuff, I was taking that into consideration. And everything I read about his is very logical and more believable than everything else I've ever heard. You know, he has a book called Mars and the Lost Planet Man. And that goes into the ancient history of Mars, the people that were there, the people that are still there underground. and the planet that was destroyed, which created the asteroid belt. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, the asteroids in the belt couldn't be a planet because there's not enough debris there to make up a planet. I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Who said there would be?
Right.
You know, and I've given people a demonstration before of a ping pong ball. I've taken a ping pong ball, we sprayed it with some hairspray, and I lit it on fire, and it goes bang. And you know what's left? Almost nothing. You can't put together a ping pong ball from the material left
Right.
because it got destroyed.
Right. Like it's a puzzle. Or something.
Yeah, that's not how things get. Yeah. So, you know, some of the giveaways are one of the moons of that planet is still there. It's in the asteroid belt. We call it Ceres, Ceres.
Right.
You know, that's a leftover moon of the planet that was there.
Right.
And he goes into a lot about the high level beings on that planet, why it was destroyed, and the people from Mars and where they went. And they're humanoid, a lot of them.
Right.
And in his big picture, the people we're calling ETs are not beings from another planet that evolved on their own, developed some magical craft on their own, and are coming to visit Earth to study it. It isn't that at all. It's the souls like us that have finished up their Earth work, matured themselves to a point where they don't need to be on this level anymore, and they graduate Earth back up into these higher dimensions, higher levels, whatever word somebody wants to use. And at those levels, we have a very big soft spot in our heart for the souls down a level, under amnesia, still trying to work through things. And so we them help the lower ones as guides and help them stay on their path, or make sure they're supposed to, or make sure they do face the particular adversities they're supposed to face when they come here. Earth life isn't about it being great the whole time. Now, it is an enjoyable life on Earth, and he told me that's kind of a prerequisite to get out of here. You didn't have a good time down here, you're not going to be allowed out. But it's learning how to stop and smell the roses and appreciate things as we go through our struggles. And our struggles are the ways that the path points out the insecurities we developed over a lot of incarnations. And we come to places like this to get over them. And the one thing that prevents us from doing that is, as we identify those insecurities about ourselves, a lot of people try to feed them instead of overcome them. Or they learn about an insecurity they have, they start to label themselves as a person who does that thing, instead of maturing and getting over it, right?
Yeah, and they're programming themselves to
You're right, yeah.
perpetuate their own victory. Like,
yeah, and then you end up coming back to Earth until you figure it out, you know?
Right.
It can take some people a million incarnations, or there's some people that just aren't designed to graduate anytime soon, you know?
Right.
True Earthlings that are just going to be here over and over.
Yeah.
They really don't have any attention span for UFOs. They don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that message, and I think that's a good message to end on. You know, don't forget to stop and smell the roses through your struggles.
It's so important, and it's taken me practice, you know, because I can let myself get consumed about whatever I'm worrying about, but worrying, especially once you get into metaphysics, worrying is like praying for something you don't want to happen, right? You're worrying about it all the time. You're putting your energy and your intent into that thing.
Yeah.
And if you take a break from that and unplug yourself from that situation and go do something that's even mildly enjoyable, you start to develop a new passion for those little things that can actually, going and sitting by the creek here for a day can teach you more sometimes than any book. Oh, we got a little visitor.
Yeah. As a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, wonderful monarch coming by. But yeah, you know, people who are into the UFOs, I always suggest them make your next trip to Sedona. You know, if it's really something you're into, you have to see them. You got to just come out and see them flying around. There's no more doubt then at that point. You know, like the instance we had the other night is a perfect example. So those craft all coming out at the same time like that has been going on since like September 23, I think. is when we first started recording it. I actually had forgotten about it because it's been going on so long and I was doing other stuff. About a month and a half ago, we're out here and we saw it happening. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. It's still happening. That doesn't take away the unique experience somebody can have. It's just what is happening. So the other night when we were here, you know, Lily felt called out here because of the day and the time. And she felt them tell her to turn her camera on, right?
Yeah.
And we got another one coming up from the mountain. They said get your camera ready. They were not lying. We got another triangle formation.
No, there's 4. Wow, look at that.
Whoa!
5.
Oh my gosh, look at all those lights.
That is amazing.
Whoa! Whoa!
That is amazing. They're just.
Oh my gosh.
They literally are.
Because that phenomena happens fairly regularly, doesn't take away from the specialty of that moment. They're basically calling her to a place where she can witness what she's supposed to witness, you know, instead of appearing in your room or something that could be frightening. They're calling people out here more now, I think.
Yeah.
To have the sighting and the encounter and know in your heart that it's genuine.
Yeah.
If we learn to feel with our heart instead of our brain, you get to experience a lot more, I think.
Yeah, I think the heart is the highway to the other dimensions, and that's how, through the heart, is how we can perceive things like these craft and these extraterrestrials, Sasquatch, the elementals.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful message. Thank you. This has been an honor sitting here. I think we could do another 2 or 3 more interviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really,
I'll come back anytime, and especially as more things happen out here, you know, we can do an update on something fun and cool.
Yeah. And anyone listening, if you are interested in coming to Sedona, Lily has a retreat out here coming up in October, and there's still a few tickets left. So, and I think she's coming to the ranch. So
even better.
So I'll put that link in the description as well. But this has been an honor. And one more time, let them know how to find you.
Yeah, on Instagram, you can see pictures and videos. My account is @ababyraven. And on YouTube, if you look up Hoodoo Tall, HOODOO, you can kind of find the series we're putting together. I have some more episodes we're working on. It just takes time as you collect evidence and kind of categorize it all and put it together. But yeah, it's all up there and it's all for free.
All right. Yeah, well, go check it out, and I'll put those links below in the description as well. And thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This was a pleasure. It was
always great to be out here.
All right. Till next time, guys. Okay, so we are getting ready to walk in the house we were just interviewing in front of, where a lot of activity occurs. And I guess, oh, there you go, the Bradshaw Ranch house. And this is where you had the conversation with the Guardians.
Yes, sir. It was actually on that little platform there, which we've never figured out what that thing originally was, but we've used
this platform here?
Yeah, we've used it kind of rituals or ceremonies and stuff like that. I do want to clean this bar up one time so we can all dress fancy and have a nice party in here.
Old time photos.
I just want to slide a drink down the bar like you see in the cowboy movies, you know?
Hey, whoa.
But it's so great. This thing is amazing.
Looks like somebody's been doing something here.
Yeah, you always get little nuggets.
What's that little alien?
I do know who drew that. And this used to be a barn, I think, this whole side, because these are 2 giant doors. And those are giant doors now where the window is that has been cut out. So I think this area was a barn, and they turned it into the restaurant and bar when they started doing the Old West tours and stuff like that.
Really? Okay.
And then, so they lived in this side of the house.
What is?
It's a creepy door.
Oh, what does it say? What does that sound? Yeah, so the only time I'd been through this house was at night. And it was pitch black, so we just had our lights.
Yeah.
And there was no moon, so it was really creepy last time I was in there.
This is the bed I want to try to sleep in and put my camera out, sleep here, and see if anything picks the camera up and shoots photos while I'm sleeping. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if
it's going to be a weird night, I'll tell you.
I'll let you try that one first.
Yeah.
So this is an old bathroom.
This is one of my favorites. It's been here a long time. There's a few in red that have been here for a while that I want to believe. It's kind of like one of the...
Right, one of the staples here.
Yeah, one of the staples of the ranch. That one and the one over here. Somebody did that one fairly recently on the window, so people are still trying to...
What's that say?
Plunger.
Plunger.
Yeah, but no matter my best effort to try to clean the place up when I can, you still get people that come out and just like to destroy stuff, you know?
Messing with you.
Yeah, I try to clean up the outside a bit, especially on the far side of the property. Just try to make some order from some of the chaos, just energetically.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. It's actually the property itself feels really good, and I want to stress that point to anyone watching because, like you said, the Skinwalker has known for being kind of negative.
My other favorite one.
Yeah. Seeing these at night is a little
So different.
Yeah. You're like, what the hell's going on?
Well,
here?
the vibe here is definitely a lot different at night than during the day. And I think that is because at night, the entities here can manifest, and I think they come in closer to see what we're doing. In the daytime, you know, you can feel it, but doesn't feel as powerful.
Yeah, it's a different vibe out here entirely. It almost just feels like a normal place during the day.
Yeah.
At night, you know, I think for one, sunset is like...
Oh, yeah.
I think that's like where the veil's the thinnest.
I feel like that too, and I've had even Bigfoot vocalizations right after sunset where I yell and they scream at me from across the field there.
So who technically owns this house?
So the government owns it and they lease the property to Northern Arizona University, but the university only uses the fenced off area over there where we don't go.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
And so as far as I know, this part of the property is free to roam. It doesn't say no trespassing anywhere. And I think as long as we don't interfere with what the university's doing, there isn't really any reason to not be here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you come out here as much as you do and don't get stopped, I would say that.
Right. I've even had a sheriff roll up on us one night when we were up by where the cars are parked. And when he pulled up, he just said, "Oh, you guys just watching the night sky?" We said, "Yeah." He said he had a call about some kids who had a bonfire going, so he was out looking for them. He didn't care at all. Yeah. I've run into the university people like 2-3 times now. They don't really care what anyone's doing, just keep their stuff safe. You know?
I've also heard that, so there's like known underground tunnels here as far as that go to some cement plant or something?
So the thing about that is network will have to make anything sound crazy because it's on network and they need to sell ads. What they didn't tell you is that this whole valley and everything were big mining operations for like 100 years. Not only that, but all the bootleggers and everything during Prohibition. There are tunnels everywhere out here, whether they're old mining tunnels or bootlegging tunnels. And the one that they said they located under the ranch property, they said, oh, it leads to the cement plant. Okay, but it also leads to the old copper mine that is right at where the cement. So it makes more sense that it was an old mining tunnel or bootlegging tunnel to Jerome if it was a secret government tunnel. It would have been a lot deeper and they wouldn't have detected it.
Right.
You know, and I've seen scans where up by the cars there, they're like, oh, there's something round in the ground, just under the ground here. It's probably an old tank or old ranch property. I mean, this place was a ranch for a long time.
Right.
And there is stuff buried all throughout the valley relating to mining and ranching and old houses. And
yeah, I mean, if anything, maybe the government utilized the tunnel system that was already in place, but...
Right, but yeah. It's, and it also, I hear the same people say that there's a base directly under the ranch. And I'm like, okay, well, is it a tunnel or is it a whole base? Because if there's a tunnel, then there's no base, you know? So
right.
I think there's some people that make vague statements to feed conspiracies.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm just trying to more be about
right.
boots on the ground and figure out what's really going on.
So those are the chairs. That's kind of the circle where we were sitting when we filmed the
fleet.
the fleet and had the pebbles being thrown at us and stuff. And then I guess the fleet appeared right over those mountains there.
Yep, absolutely right.
Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.